Is this George Saunders' greatest short story? Sometimes, on some levels, I think so. Sometimes, I am just utterly aggravated at what I perceive to be digs at certain types of people in this short story. At other times, I am a little bit incensed at the number 4 item on the literary criticism that you see in front of you here. Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another short story discussion, a short story discussion which will appear in 3 separate playlists here on the channel. Number 1, a short story by short story read along for 10th of December by George Saunders. Number 2, the George Saunders playlist. And number 3, the short story playlist, an ever-growing playlist of videos where I talk about some of the great short stories that are out there. So this video will have 3 separate parts. Number 1, a So What Happened, where we recap what the story was. 2, a literary criticism portion, where we talk about the importance, perhaps, of this piece. And number 3, a writer's corner, where we talk about what we can take from this story as writers. So, what happened in this short story? Our narrator has just turned 40, over the hill, don't you know? And he's decided he's going to start writing every day, journaling, sort of. He's a father and well-meaning, but sort of aloof. Things are literally falling apart around him, and the kids are trying to reassure him that it's okay. Lily's friend has a birthday party, and Lily's friend is from a rich family, and our narrator becomes ashamed that he can't provide that type of life for his family, as his family are at this party in awe. Their family, the family hosting the party, also has Semplica girls. On the way home, Lily is excited for her party, but when she is asked what she wants for her party, she says nothing. Days later, she has a wish list. It's $300 porcelains, and our narrator gets upset. He's a little bit upset that his daughter thinks that $300 porcelains, $300 for her birthday, is an acceptable wish. A little bit upset that she wants old lady gifts. He tries to jockey money between credit cards, but there isn't enough time. He will not be able to get Lily a birthday present at all. And then, bada boom, he wins $10,000 on a scratch-off ticket. Instead of being responsible with the money, they decide to redo the yard and throw Lily a surprise party. The yard is complete with 4 Semplica girls, and it's all done while the kids are at school. The surprise party, when they get home, and they even bought all of the porcelains for Lily. The party goes okay, but afterwards, Ava, the other sister, is upset for the Semplica girls, and we get this quote as our narrator tries to reason with his daughter. Me. It helps them take care of the people they love. Ava facing the wall, lower lip out in her pre-crying way. Then I get the idea. Go to kitchen, page through personal statements. Yikes, worse than I thought. Laotian, Tammy, applied due to sisters already in brothels. Moldovan, Gwyn, has cousin who thought was becoming window washer in Germany, but no, sex slave in Kuwait. Somali, Lisa, watched father plus little sister die of AIDS. Same tiny thatch hut, same year. Filipina, Betty, has little brother, very skilled for computer. Parents cannot afford high school, have lived in tiny lean-to with 3 other families since their own tiny lean-to slid down the hillside in an earthquake. I opt for Betty, go back, and back to the closet, read Betty aloud. Me. Does that help? Do you understand now? Can you kind of imagine her little brother in a good school? Because of her? Because of us? Ava. If we want to help them, why can't we just give them the money? After this, our narrator becomes popular at work because of their lawn display with the Semplica girls. And then we get this as our narrator is becoming awakened in life. Have been sleepwalking through life, future reader. Can see that now. Scratch off win was like a wake up call. In rush to graduate college, win Pam, get job, make babies, move ahead in job. Forgot former feeling of special destiny I used to have when tiny, sitting in cedar smelling room, bedroom closet, looking up at blowing trees through high windows, feeling I would someday do something great. Then, one morning, the Semplica girls are gone. They call the police and a rep from the Semplica company who says, hey, if these Semplica girls aren't located, you're automatically out the rest of the money. And if you don't pay it, we'll sue you. The rest of the money is $8,600. And remember, we'll sue you. Pam is convinced that they will lose the house. Then Ava starts crying. It turns out she released the Semplica girls, and the story ends with everything just up in the air like that. No answers, no conclusion, just a lingering melancholy. So, what is there to talk about with this short story? I think that it is maybe beneficial to focus a little bit on our narrator. Our narrator seems to be the driving factor here with this short story, and he feels terrible about his job. He is trying his hardest to change things for his family, and that gives us a character with whom we can spend time and try to like. This happens on page 119 of the standard print version. Sat thinking of Ava. Such a sweetie. Last night, after party, found her in her room, asked why. She said no reason, but in sketchpad, crown pick of row of sad Semplica girls, could tell they were meant to be sad due to frowns went down off faces like Fu Manchu's, and tears were dropping in arcs. Flowers were springing up where their tears hit the ground. Note to self, talk to her, explain it does not hurt. They are not sad, but actually happy, given what their prior conditions were like. They chose, are glad, etc. This is the consumerist sort of way that our narrator has tried to find to make his family appreciate him more, to make his family happier, to raise their status in life. But he thinks that because he's a bit of a space cadet. He's not a very smart person, and he is prone to fantasy. Now, one of the things that bothers me sometimes with this short story is I'm from the Midwest, and this is flyover country. And in my heart of hearts, I'm pretty sure that a lot of the country believes that here in the little, simple Midwest, this is the story. This is how all of us act. This is how all of us behave. This is how all of us speak. And we get this on the entry for September 8th on page 120 of the standard print version. Just now returned home from long walk in Woodcliff. All over up there, men my age reading in big chairs under orange affluent lights. Where is my big chair? Orange light. No big chair, no affluent lights, no book-lined room. Why is art on our walls so lame? We have only one of old-time cars got at Target and one of generic beach with Ferris wheel from garage sale. First off, George Saunders. Why is this character speaking like a caveman? Like, I understand this is supposed to be a little bit of shorthand. I think our writer has gone overboard a little bit with this, and it comes across as judgy, preachy, all of these types of things. Also, most people don't have paintings hanging in their home. They just don't. Maybe that's just where I'm from. Maybe that's just the people with whom I have interacted. Most people don't have paintings hanging from their walls. They don't think that much about it. This is one of those things where I think we're seeing a little bit of Saunders creep into his characters and his own predilections. On 131, and we're getting to an actual point, I promise, but there are some little talking points that I wanted to get to. Note to future generations, happiness possible, and when happy, so much better than the opposite, i.e., sad. Hopefully, you know. I knew, but forgot. Got used to being slightly sad due to stress, due to worry vis a vis limitations, but now, wow. No. Happy. Isn't that life? Isn't that just sort of what life is? Slowly degrading into being sad all the time? Into being less than happy every moment of your day? Into asking why would I be smiling right now? All of these things. I think that is something that happens to too many people too often, myself included. I'm not. I fall victim to this as well, I guess I should say. But the main talking point that I have here is this. We are meant to feel sorry for the Semplica girls. Is that not correct? I think that the judgment being passed by Ava is being passed by Ava. The actions taken in cutting the Semplica girls loose. That is something that is supposed to be profound because it is coming from a child. That, much like the short story The School by Donald Bartholomew, we are supposed to be in awe of Ava and her wisdom in the face of all of this consumerism. And look, Dad, if we want to help them, why can't we just give them the money? Here's the question I have, though. If the genders were reversed, and I know, oh, don't reverse genders in stories, don't talk about gender, unless it's one way, okay, fine, whatever. The story is very clearly called The Semplica Girl Diaries. The Semplica girls don't have diaries. They have those statement sheets. Our protagonist has a diary. So the point of this story is very clear, very upfront, very right now and in your face. The Semplica girls are the ones who are to be this are the ones who are to be pitied here. They are the victims here. Would we make this argument for men? There are many estimates. So, what are the Semplica girls doing? If we are to take a big step back, okay? Take a big step back, broad picture. What are the Semplica girls doing? They are signing a contract to go to a foreign land, okay? Have a very terrible job for a few years. There's something about they mentioned the contract expiring and them going home. So they're signing a contract to go to a foreign land, have a pretty terrible job for, we'll just imagine, 4 years. We'll just say 4 years. And then go home. They made their money. They took care of their family. They can go home. There are estimates that 97.6 to 98.1 of the casualties of war in history are male. 97, 98%. What is the Army? You sign a contract, you go to a foreign land, you have a pretty terrible job. 4 years later, you get to go home. In the Army, it is not impossible that you find yourself a casualty. Right? It's not impossible. We've seen it how often? Even if you're not quote unquote called to war. Recently, there was a botched mission to leave Afghanistan. I think it was 13 service people died. It's a risk. Are there risks inherent to the job that the Semplica girls are doing in this short story? I don't know. What I'm really getting around to, this might just be a cheap trick by George Saunders. This is why sometimes I hate this short story, because it might just be cheap. It might just, the Semplica girls. It's a girl from the Philippines and a girl from Laos, and we're going to take them away from their homes in order that they earn money to send back to their families. Throw a Somalian in. You have to feel bad for a Somalian girl, don't you? Is that what George Saunders is getting to here? You feel bad for them because they're foreign and they're poor, and if we just throw woman on top of it, well, you have to feel bad for them then. You have to. And then, because our author is a little bit goofy, and maybe, probably, almost certainly, if you've ever seen an interview with him, kind of a space cadet as well, he is trying to garner sympathy for the father figure in this story through having him being hardworking. He's a likable guy, really, kind of off the top. But if these were, instead of Semplica girls, they were, what would you say? Chaos clowns. Little clowns that dance around in a box. But they're guys. Would you feel as sorry for them? And maybe they're guys, but they're not, Filipinas, they're kind of small, so they give you this sort of sense that you're bigger than them, right? So automatically, right, we got to feel sorry for them. We have to feel sorry for them. I think in my deepest readings of this short story, when I'm willing to dig past all of the window dressing, if you will, I think this short story might just be a cheap trick. Even down to, we get these sort of, I don't buy it that the Pam's father happens to be a farmer. I think that is a bias from George Saunders himself. And look, this is just me spitballing now. But there are a group of people in academia, for some reason, I spent long enough there, who think that farmers just print money because they don't understand the work and the labor and the time. And I don't know where the bias comes from. George Saunders finds himself in academia. So maybe this is just me being a little bit bitter against academia. But part of me is absolutely... Part of me thinks that this is George Saunders' greatest short story. There's so much going on. There are dynamics from every character that comes into this short story. There's always something to look at. There's always something for your mind to play with throughout this short story. But then I realize, oh, well, he's flaunting out their poor girls so that you do automatically feel sorry for them. And he's flaunting out their children, little children, grade school children in Lillian, Ava, and Thomas, because you have to sort of feel sorry for them. And oh gosh, the hangdog daddy. The hangdog dad who just can't get it right. And then his wife, who gave up her better life to be with such an aw shucks kind of guy. It's just kind of too cheap sometimes for me. Not too saccharine, so at least it's not that, right? But sometimes it feels like a cheap trick. So moving on to the writer's corner of this video, there's an issue with this short story, if you ask me, with passivity. Because we are getting this from the narrator, it becomes very passive. Ava came to me and said XYZ, and Lily was sad. Instead of actually giving us the scene, we're having to translate the scene through our narrator. Having to translate the scene through the narrator means that we are not immediate in the scene. Ironically, being third person in this short story might put us closer to things, because being first person, we are having to translate through the narrator for ourselves, through the narrator's diction, which we'll get to next, for ourselves, and then we have to envision the actions on our own. Instead of the third person narrator really painting the scene to show us Ava being sad, Ava being angry for the Semplica girls, Lily being self-deprecating, all of these things, we get them through a narrator that's kind of a space cadet. And then, when things really hit the fan later in the short story, and Ava's out there cutting loose the Semplica girls, you'd be forgiven if you were like, well, wait a minute. Was it Ava that had the party, or was it Lily that had the party? Because we are forced to see these characters through someone else's eyes, we don't develop them in our own way for the short story. The last thing that I want to say about this, guys, don't do this. First off, this is like a 60-page short story or something like that. You're never going to get it published if you're not George Saunders. Second off, this diction, the voice of our narrator, if you're not George Saunders, an editor takes 3 sentences into this short story and casts it aside because they figure you don't know how to write. You might think, how would you get that far to making a submission if you were this stupid? Let me tell you something. I have a master's degree in creative writing. I spent that money. I worked my way up to being able to take that time out of life and go get that degree. And I was sitting there dropping lots of money on these classes. And what happens in these classes is, say, Monday, Todd and Jimmy turn in their short story, and everybody gets a copy of their short story. They have to print it out, bring it to class, pass it out. Wednesday, you talk about Todd and Jimmy's short story while Rebecca and Amanda pass theirs out, right? So you read everyone else's work in these shorts. When I tell you, I was in a master's level class at a private college with individuals who could not put together a complete sentence, I mean it. That is true. People who were not particularly writing in the English language, I mean it. So, if I were suddenly in charge of some publication and the Semplica Girl Diaries came across my desk, as brilliant as the short story might be, I would get about a paragraph into that, figure that it's not a tool being deployed by the author, figure that it is just someone who cannot write, and I would toss it out. Personally. And I don't think I'm alone. So it's a very big risk to use this type of diction, to use this type of superfluous use of grammar, the way that it's deployed in the short story, the parentheses with exclamation points inside them, things like that. Very risky. Not saying it's bad. Telling you don't do it if you want to get published, right? George Saunders pulls it off, but it's because George Saunders got published, right? Anyway, that's what I have for this short story. If you appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more literature in the future. There's poetry on the channel every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.